All right, first appearance shelf. And I already have to set up some of my rules. See, every collector has arbitrary rules that they set up so that they don't go overboard, or so that they don't have to, I don't know, modify every single figure that goes on their shelf. So, Star-Lord didn't need nothing done to him. That is a great Star-Lord. Now, I could be really nitpicky. I could say that the gold above the boots isn't the right color. Maybe I should repaint that. Maybe I should add a wash to his belt. But the point of a lot of my collections is I'm trying to keep them as standard as possible. Because the more I customize a figure, the less I'm able to really, touch him. Customs break down fairly fast. Everyone knows that. You put him in a box. You put them out for display, and that's it. But what I'm talking about here is Drax. I haven't done anything to Drax. But several people could point out that that's not technically a first appearance Drax, because Drax was much smaller when he came out. And so, he would have to come out on, like, the Grim Reaper mold. Or, the modern equivalent of the Grim Reaper mold, which I guess would be the new Punisher mold. Because the Punisher replaces that body in size class. But one of my rules here is that because Hasbro doesn't care about scale, and because we're probably never going to get some of these characters smaller, I've decided that I'll use modern scaling if necessary to get a first appearance character. So I am completely fine with this technically Infinity Gauntlet version of Drax being the first appearance, because this is the first appearance costume. He's just very large. But honestly, the reason I have to make that rule is right over here. Hulk. My first appearance Hulk, too big. A lot of people don't realize when the Hulk first came out, he was only like 6'8", 6'7". Like he was not that much bigger than Captain America. And over time, he's gotten bigger. We're never going to get a Hulk figure that is accurate scale to his first appearance. That's not going to happen. You could get closer by getting the old Toy Biz one, just because Toy Biz figures are smaller because of the Marvel Legends creep. But so I'm dealing with the fact that Drax is bigger, because a lot of characters used to be smaller. I mean, take a look at Juggernaut. Juggernaut was just a little bit taller than everybody else, and he was a normal-sized person. And now he's, 9 feet tall? So that's a concession that we all have to make. That's not just a me thing. We've got Nova. This is technically first appearance Nova. I wish he wasn't still using old Bucky Cap parts. This is the problem with old Bucky Cap stuff is not that it's bad. It's just that they're gummy. As they reuse that mold 100 times, each new version of it was weaker. And so you can see he's got some bend going on at the legs. I will probably end up updating him at some point, I'm pretty sure this torso can still take the Vulcan limbs, so I might do that at some point. I'll double check what his canon height is supposed to be. If he's supposed to be shorter, then I might be able to get away with some Sunfire limbs. The pinless versions. Which are the Renew Your Vows limbs, but I don't feel like renaming a body every time they make a minor change. It's just retooled Sunfire. We got Ghost Rider. He was built using a long shot. He's one of the few characters like that. I have a few here that are 100% customs. They're not just a modification. I typically only do these if I have the parts and if I am confident that we're probably not getting one. That's not to say we're never going to get a first appearance Ghost Rider or a very classic. It's just, I don't see Hasbro going all out. See, originally, we get in closer, you'll see that Ghost Rider's neck is just a neck. That's because originally, Ghost Rider didn't have a skeleton head. You could actually argue in his original comics that his skull looks more like the mask of a skull, not an actual skull. So, I don't see us getting this brightly colored, bright blue version of Ghost Rider. They're probably just going to put out 100 more versions of the other Ghost Riders. And if we get another Johnny Blaze, it's not going to be this color. It's going to be like darker. Though if we do get eventually this, he was based on Evel Knievel. Like it was never supposed to be a leather suit. It was always supposed to be a stuntman suit. So I'm hoping that eventually we get one and I'll replace the body and do modifications. But, before him, I find this one funny. I didn't do anything to her. It's just Marvel Legends hopped straight to making her as soon as she appeared. So I just find this really funny because when there is a new character, I can just throw it straight on my first appearance shelf because Hasbro makes it and there hasn't been enough time for any, differences to be had. So, and I've got Scarlet Spider back there. Now, I've made it no secret that I dislike Spider-Man on the Renew Your Vows body. That is not a Spider-Man body. He's too tall. He's too big. That is just a replacement for the Sunfire mold. And it should fit characters like, Daredevil, Iron Fist, stuff like that. It's not a Spider-Man specific body. So I don't like it. I much prefer the Amazing Fantasy body. He's the right height there compared to all the other characters. This body's actually, in my opinion, better. And I prefer this kind of smoothed down, almost Alex Ross look anyway. So I could talk about the new Maximum Spider-Man because I am thinking about getting him. And I know that's controversial right now. But I just, honestly, it's worth it for all the accessories because I actually use accessories. For a lot of people, it's not going to be worth it because they're going to put all that in a box. But all that stuff is going to work on this Spider-Man and that Spider-Man and any other Spider-Man I feel like getting. I mean, down here, I've got a bunch of, movie Spider-Men. So, I'm going to be able to make those thwip hands with the webbing work on this figure. And I really like that. Plus, I was not on board with the Maximum Spider-Man because I just don't care about McFarlane's Spider-Man. He got really creepy with it. That's the vision a lot of people have of Spider-Man, and I just don't like it. I never did. This is my Spider-Man. This has always been my Spider-Man. I grew up with the original comics. I'm not saying I'm that old. I'm saying that I have a unique history with 60s and early 70s Marvel. I am not actually in the demographic I'm supposed to be. Because I was born in the 90s. I was born in 92. And so I should prefer the 90s versions of these characters. But I don't. In fact, that's the reason I have this shelf. Is, for me, a lot of these are my versions of these characters. This is the Marvel that I care about. This is the Marvel that I want. And we're never going to see it again. So I love the history here. But Scarlet Spider, I redid his eyes for the first appearance of this costume, and I don't mind Scarlet Spider on this body. I know I just railed against it, but and as a clone of Spider-Man, he should be on the same body as Spider-Man. But because this is 90s Scarlet Spider, because of the way they drew comics at the time, because they accentuated all the muscles, it works for him. So, but I do keep him way away from Spider-Man over here. One, because it's a different era, and two, because if I put them together, the fact that they're clones really kind of falls apart. Same with Kane. I've actually got Kane. I've got Kane way over here with the Watcher. I'd love to put him on the first appearance shelf too. He needs repainted. He needs redone. And he's too short. They actually made him a similar height to Spider-Man. They made him slightly taller. I guess nobody over at Hasbro realized that he's supposed to be like 6'4" in this version of Kane. He shrinks when like his degeneration is fixed, but Kane should be on that new Punisher body. I know we wouldn't get all of the sculpted detail and stuff, but he needed to be that size. This is not correct. We've got Icarus. I've put the Flash Thompson head on him because originally he had short hair, not long hair. And I'm thinking about going in, like I've just thrown it on there for now. I'm probably going to go in and paint some yellow to his hair, and I'm probably going to go in. I haven't decided. I might paint all this gold yellow just for that classic Jack Kirby look. That's what I want. That's just what I want. But there's no difference between this figure and the first appearance costume other than the short hair. And the head just works here because they made it too big for their Flash Thompson. So we got Wolverine. And I know the head is slightly the wrong color. That's because I was using a different body for this for the longest time. I've just popped it over. Hasbro's first appearance head was just hideous. And I know that back and forth, the white in the eyes might not be accurate. I'm probably gonna have to replace that. I just never really liked the way it looked. But now that I'm going back and making all these more accurate, I'll probably do something with that. Now, I haven't changed the claws. The claws should be different too, but because this is a figure that I'm making concessions on, so that I can still take it back to 97 if I need to, I can still have a standard, yellow and blue costume on this body mold. That's why I haven't painted any of the hair. Because first appearance Wolverine didn't have hair on his arms. But like his claws. The knuckle pieces went all the way up to the back of his wrist originally. And the claws were a little shorter and curved. They curved around his hand. So those would be changes that I would have to make if I wanted this to be more accurate. If I made this a permanent first appearance Wolverine, I would do that. But as it stands right now, this is close enough. We've got Iron Man. I've posted about my Iron Man a few times. I actually just made the change. His helmet comes off now, and I can swap between the black eyes and the painted eyes. I have a light inside his chest so that I can turn that on and his chest glows. I've resculpted his hands to be thicker. They were a little too thin, and they had repulsors on his hands. First appearance Iron Man didn't have repulsors on his hands. He had tools that he pulled out of his belt. They weren't built in. And he didn't have those on his hands because he couldn't fly. Hell, he basically walked home after beating the guy that kidnapped him. He put on a trench coat and walked home in his suit. We got Daredevil. I made this Daredevil from the 2-pack Blur. And I picked that body because, well, yellow. I hate painting yellow. But I grabbed it because it was a pinless body with yellow limbs. I just basically had to paint the red. And I did the face. That might be a Blur head. Yeah, I think that's also the Blur head. And I took off the goggles and redid it. I like that one too. That one turned out really nice. I really wanted him next to Spider-Man. I actually had Human Torch here with them too. I have Human Torch down here that I made more classic. The thing is, I towed the line with him because I kind of want that 90s looking Fantastic Four, the dark blue and white. Because honestly, if I did first appearance Fantastic Four, we're looking at street clothes characters. They didn't have costumes originally. I have already made first appearance concessions for that. Like I have Ant-Man here. Originally, Ant-Man was just in a lab coat. He was just a scientist. Because he appeared in Strange Tales, so it was just a one-off story, and they just decided to throw him into the Avengers when they did that. So for him, this is, first appearance of his costume. And I've made that kind of concession with a couple characters. We got, first appearance Hulk, which I also use as a classic Hulk. This is another concession one. Because if I really wanted this to be first appearance, I need to redo his shirt. Because this is not how his shirt looked. Like, on the cover, his shirt comes down, it tucks in, it's just ripped down the front. So he should have a more permanent shirt sculpted on there. But because I use him for a 70s Hulk as well, just a standard gray Hulk, because I like posing him with my new Wolverine, he's another character that I'm like, close enough. I'd really like to get a head sculpt, though. All of my head sculpts look like, 70s gray Hulk. I'd really like to get a head sculpt that actually looks like his first appearance face. But I haven't been able to track one down yet, and I'm not necessarily confident enough to make one, So, we got first appearance Hawkeye and Black Widow. Hawkeye is just, a redone version of the original Hawkeye. It did hurt me to shorten his mask, because for years Hasbro only gave us the short mask, and then finally they gave us the longer mask. I was like, oh yeah, I'll put him in my first appearance collection. Then I looked up his first appearance costume again, and I was like, he had the short mask. So I guess that's more accurate to the character. I did have to do a bunch of... He was surprising. I had to do minor changes to him that I did not expect. Like, he was actually a lot more work than I thought he was. So, because I had to redo the scaly collar. I had to sculpt, the black part out over the shoulders. I had to do a couple of things. We got Black Widow, who I just used a Shriek, to make. And that is the 80s looking Black Widow head from that Target Black Widow. I might go back and redo her mask. I cut that out of leather, but it's also obvious that I did that. I might go back and sculpt that at some point so that it's cleaner. Same with the belt. The reason this figure had been put on hold for so long was because I knew I had to sculpt the belt, and then I just got lazy at the end. And after I did all that line work, I was like, whatever. So I might go back and resculpt that later. Got Luke Cage. Didn't really do anything to him. I have increased his waist articulation, but he's whatever. Got Black Panther. I just painted the lines on him and repainted his eyes. I repainted his eyes to where they're actually sculpted. Hasbro does that a lot, where they sculpt the eyes and then they miss them with the paint. They either don't put enough eye in there, or they put too much in there. I've noticed that a lot of the time lately, they're doing the black line work around the eye, right? Like the eyelashes. But they're not putting them on the lid of the eye, they're putting them inside the eye. So, often when I fix eyes, that's all I do, is I just repaint it to where it's sculpted. We've got Miss Marvel, which, I recently did, so you can see how I recently did that. I made posts. The only thing I didn't change is originally her boots came up to a point in the front, and it's just not big enough a change for me to worry about, so I didn't do that yet. I might go back and do it. I don't know. Because honestly, sometimes they put out a figure that's close enough to first appearance, and I just do it to put it on my first appearance shelf, because this is one of my more important shelves. This is my favorite one. It's history, and when people come and visit me and they look at this shelf and they kind of recognize a character, but not really, I get to, give them a full history rundown, and I love that. We got Vision. That's just, the Vision. And then we got Doctor Strange. This is another character that I can swap back and forth. I gave him a fabric cape, so I can put the red cape on him. I have a blue cape I can put on him. I used the closed eye head, and I shaded the whole head because Ditko drew him very etched, very shadowed. And I resculpted the head to be that sleeked back hair that he originally had. The cool thing with the Doctor Strange heads is because the way they made them, the hairpiece fits into the same hole. And so the open eye head, the alternate head, I can swap the hair back and forth. So at any point, I can have just a normal classic Doctor Strange, and I can have either sets of the hair on that other face. I also took the black spots, down his hands, like they're supposed to. The only problem I have with him is, he's still got those gummy Sunfire legs. They fixed that in recent versions of him. I just haven't yet. Eventually, I'm going to get pinless legs and just replace them on him. So, I'd like to do the same thing with Ant-Man. I was originally going to get that Hank Pym and Wasp 2-pack, because Wasp needed to go on this shelf, and she was very important for me to get, but it was too expensive. I didn't have the money, and now I definitely don't have. There's no way I can pick it up now. I hope they just release her again later. But I had been planning on swapping the limbs onto this Ant-Man and repainting the boots and gloves. That was my original plan. And there's been a couple characters, that are no longer on this shelf. Every once in a while, I hit a point where I just need money. And so I have to get rid of some of my stuff. Like I had a first appearance Blade. This is actually like the third time I've made Daredevil. So, sometimes you make sacrifices. Sometimes you get to build your shelf out. While we're over here, just because it's not enough to talk about, I do have a random figure collection over here. I have this Loki back here. I got him pretty close to first appearance, but that was not the intent with him. It was just to go classic. And they kept putting him on the Grim Reaper mold, and I don't like that mold for him. So I actually used, there's a couple people going to cringe at this, because I know that figure is hard to get now and more expensive. I used Electro to make him. And I did that because I don't think that body fits Electro either. I think both of those characters needed moved down a size. Electro needs to be on the Sunfire style body, and Loki needed to be on this Prowler style body. And I know most people call that the Spider UK body. I don't. I'm so tired of every single body being named after a Spider-Man. Stop doing that. Just stop. Don't put all your new bodies on different kinds of Spider-Man. It doesn't work. Because then people get confused when you say, oh, I use this body. They're like, I don't remember which random variant of Spider-Man that particular name comes from. So, yeah, I call it the Prowler mold because Prowler was the first character on that body that everybody agreed should be on that body. That body was originally used for Cosmic Spider-Man and Spider UK, and in all of the reviews, and everybody agreed, everybody said they should have been on the Grim Reaper mold instead of that new body. So, I've always felt that, I'm justified in calling it the Prowler mold. We've got a classic Doctor Doom. You can see some of my sculpt sticking out there. That's mostly because I'm okay with this Doctor Doom, but at the end of the day, I want him to be better. Doctor Doom is another one of my very favorite characters. So, I wanted his torso to be wider. So I replaced his torso with the Black Series Wrecker figure. So he ended up, wider. You can see more armor bits going on through the fabric. Replaced all that. Kept the little tunic piece from the retro Doctor Doom. Eventually, I'll go in and I'll fix that bit of sculpt. That's actually really bothering me. I have my Red Skull. He's dusty. I've actually considered using this figure for a custom several times. And then I look up the price of the Red Skull to, like, rebuy him, and it's not worth it to me to rip him apart. You know, obviously I replaced his armband because I don't care if it's brand safe or not. He's a Nazi. But I have his cigarette, you know. This is very classic. It's not quite first appearance, so he's not on the shelf. That's the same with all of these. These aren't first appearance. In fact, that's what I was originally intending to use this body for. I would have loved to use this for a first appearance Doctor Doom, because they just have to do a couple of changes to do that, and they haven't. It's not, first appearance figures are not really high to do for Hasbro. I got Kang. No, I don't have the chair. And honestly, this chair wasn't made for him. You can see it's all jagged and stuff. I had an extra MODOK. This is the original MODOK chair. I got MODOK right over here. And I liked the paler gold and the more detail that's on this one. This chair is from the, that Elvis one. That Comic-Con exclusive. When it came to Ollie's, I picked that up. And I swapped out the arms and the faces and all that. But this is the original chair. And I immediately was like, I can turn that into a hover chair. And I never finished it. I haven't finished it. It's not specifically for Kang. I just knew I wanted to make a hover chair. Any hover chair for any character. And I just haven't went in and finished it yet. You know, I got a Master Splinter, Mirage Splinter. That's fun. I have, this is my oldest figure. It's not my first Marvel Legend, but he's the only one that still exists. Is that classic Cyclops. He just happens to be sitting out. I got Captain America. I'm actually getting the Secret Wars Captain America, like, tomorrow in the mail. What's your problem, Logan? Huh? Oh, is it because you can't see over his shoulder? Is that what's happening? Anyway, yeah, Kane. I got the Watcher. I have the animated one just because Marvel Legends still hasn't given us a classic one. So, we'll see how long that takes. And I'm not getting the Diamond Select one, because the Diamond Select one is basically a statue, and I hate statues. I have action figures for a reason. Statues suck. Got Tigra, got Astonishing Wolverine. I mostly got him out of spite. That's the version of Wolverine I wanted in my old collection, and they never put him out. They never put out a decent version of him, and it's one of the reasons I got rid of my old collection. We got, yeah, but Captain America, I had already swapped his limbs out with the Ultimate Captain America to give him the pinless. Why are we still not getting butterfly joints on Captain America? Can anyone answer that? Captain America is a character who fights with his arms. He specifically swings a shield. If any character gets butterfly joints, it has to be him. Why are we still not getting butterfly joints? Dinosaur. Got Earl over here. Yeah, that bothers me. I have the Bucky Captain America. Now, here's the thing. There's a couple of these characters that are only here because I happen to have them. And I haven't figured out how to customize them. I haven't figured out what to do with them. Because I've been getting Secret Wars figures, I went ahead, because I had this Doctor Doom, and I had Spectrum, and I still have them laying around in my bins, so I went ahead and pieced them back together, because I had taken parts of them apart. I pieced them back together, put them back on the shelf, just because Bucky's actually been sitting in my parts bin for the longest time, and I just haven't figured out what I want to do with the body, so I threw him back over here too. He's got different wings, and it's only because I decided to throw some Namor wings on his head, because I had cut his wings off for that Wizard figure. But, yeah, I'm really happy with some of my figures. Some of my other figures, not so much. And I'm just, you know, when Hasbro messes up, I just fix it up. there's nothing to really complain about. They're the cheapest with the most articulation. So, I have other projects. I have these little statues of some of my characters. I use Disney Infinity to make them, and I kept to the style of Disney Infinity too. That one's not done, and that one's not done, and that one's not done. They haven't been done for months. They're just sitting here. And then I just have random little knickknacks in here. Yogi Bear, the guy from the Lego movie. I was actually going to sell that, but there's no way I can sell that at my physical location. Because Lego figures just go for stupid amounts. And I'm only going to get $1 out of him, so I'm just going to keep him. Same thing with this Mario. I looked him up at one point, and he was going for like $90. I'm like, that's going on my shelf. A Furby. I repainted that too. I picked that up at like a festival. Somebody out there is just buying random Funkos and turning them into keychains and upping their prices for some reason. Yeah, but all those Disney characters. I got Lapis Lazuli back there. Yeah, so I've enjoyed doing this. If you guys like, listening to my, you know what? Just as a fun little thing, I did watch that interview between Unparalleled Universe and Ryan Ting. Not trying to call either of them out. I just because they were talking about that Maximum Hulk, right? And they were like, well, I don't really know how we would get double jointed, into arms of that size. Like, how would you even do that? I don't know how you would even possibly get double jointed arms into something of that size. I just can't possibly think of any way to do that with arms so big. I mean, there's no way that you can do that. Yeah, I just find that funny. I'm not trying to, hit on anyone. I'm not trying to say anything like super important, because some people have said, oh, well, just scale down that original 12-inch Hulk and give that to us as a maximum. It's like, no, I don't want that. This Hulk figure is not that good. Like, if I'm being honest here, the proportions on this thing are not good. If you wanted more like realistic proportions, old Toy Biz proportions, as realistic as Toy Biz was, all those figures were monsters. But his head's too big. I would argue that his chest is not wide enough. His arms actually aren't big enough. But yeah, I wouldn't want this as the new Hulk. Now, could they do that stupid upside down crunch and rocker for the Hulk? Yeah, they absolutely could. And Hulk is one of the few examples where that would work, because the upside down rocker, the whole reason it doesn't work as good as a normal ab crunch is because originally they were set up at the ribs where you had more area to turn the figure. There's not surface area down at the hips. There's not enough for them to turn, and you can't get enough clearance out of the way to do it. But with a character like the Hulk, who's so big, at the hips, you can still get enough surface area. Now, granted, even on this figure, you're still only getting about there, because it's crashing into his pants. The only way to get him to turn more would be to cut all of this area out of the pants, which just isn't going to work. You could make the sacrifice of sculpting the top of his pants onto here, and when he's standing still, and then when he bends forward, it would disappear down, like he's hiding part of the pants, like in a wrinkle there. But if you bent him backwards, the pants would be up here, And, people would complain about that too. So, again, it's not a dig. Ryan Ting apparently explained that Maximum Line was never meant to be 100% new sculpts or anything. And Unparalleled was a little upset about that statement just because, well, if you introduce a line based on something like that, it sounds like that's what the line is. And I understand both sides, I do feel like, this Hulk doesn't even need these double joints. This cut is so low on the arm that just that one cut, like it looks dumb. It looks like he's broken his arm, but it goes all the way up. Like, you can do that. That's a thing you can do. Just make the cut deeper, bring the, curve the bicep up a little more, and it works. Again, I'm not advocating for this Hulk. It's just, this is the same company. I definitely feel like that Hulk would have been more worth it for some people. A lot of the reason people seem to be turned off is the head sculpts. McGinnis is a fantastic artist. He's very famous working with the Hulk. But I feel like if they had picked any other artist, they might have been able to pass off this Hulk better. Because McGinnis is just so, like, in 3D, his Hulk is just so cartoony and so off-putting and so weird. If they had went with the Immortal Hulk, they could have given us some accessories that are like, zombie-style parts. If they had went with, that classic Gray Hulk again, they could have done, a bunch of extra stuff with that. I don't know. It does feel like, people are partly upset about the price and everything. I don't know. But this is a whole separate thing. This wasn't even supposed to be in this particular video. Like, if I want to talk about this, it should be its own thing, huh? This is a very sideways tangent. Yeah, but, he's got toe joints and stuff. I'm also comparing this figure for a different reason. It's for the price point. A lot of people are like, $70 is too much for the Hulk, when originally his deluxe price was like $30. It was like $35 or something when he would sell by himself. Most of the time, though, he's in a 2-pack, and you'd have to pay that like $60, like $50 or $60. But the thing is, that happened to this Hulk too. I don't know if anyone remembers. When they first started doing these 12-inch figures, people hated the price on them too. They wanted like $50 for the 12-inch line. They wanted what, 50 to 70 for the 12-inch figures? And everybody was like, no, we only pay $20 for Marvel Legends, so it should be $40 because it's twice the size. Which is, yes, simple math. And that's one of the reasons why the line died. Is because the items were too expensive. They sat on store shelves. They ended up going to clearance. Nobody really got these. I have several of them, but I've bought them after the fact for custom purposes. I actually need a second one of these Hulks, which isn't going to happen for a while, because one, I haven't redone this Hulk, and two, he's like $100 now. So I feel like certain characters in this Maximum line are going to sell really well, and certain other ones won't. And they'll start, just kind of curating who gets to be in the Maximum line and who doesn't. It's funny, if the Maximum line had existed a couple of years ago, that last Ghost Rider we got would definitely be a Maximum, wouldn't he? You know, the one with the flames and the bike and, you know, Danny Ketch. That definitely would have ended up being a maximum. Oh, well. Well, definitely let me know if you guys like these videos. I can keep making some more of them. I would love to start doing some videos talking about, you know, new releases as they happen, maybe review some figures, maybe do some customizing videos, stuff like that. I'd love to do some of that stuff. But if you listen to me drone on for several of these half-hour to 40-minute videos and you don't want to hear anymore, that's also fine. Because I like just taking pictures and posting and having people comment back. I thrive on that. Not in like a bad way. I love when people comment on my stuff. And when, you know, somebody asks, when more than one person asks like a particular question, I know that, hey, I should have probably put that in the post, I guess. So it does attempt to improve me. I do like it. So first appearance is definitely my favorite shelf over here. Like, I love my X-Men. I do. It's just, you know, first appearance just screams Marvel at me. You know, because Marvel set the tone back in the 60s. DC had been classic superheroes, and then Marvel came out the box. Stan Lee was like, hey, what if superheroes were just, you know, people? So, you know, we get characters like The Thing, this rough, gruff, angry superhero who gets hated by everyone he saves. You know, Spider-Man, this wallflower teenager who doesn't know what to do with his, you know, newfound powers. I mean, at one point, he was the 4th strongest character in Marvel. He definitely isn't now, just because they keep making characters. But for as strong as Spider-Man is, back then, every character he ran across and would leave, all of them gave this little statement at the end of the comic, like, oh, imagine what he'll be. We really have to watch him because, you know, he could be, like, he could destroy all of us if he gets any more powerful. You know, just, I love that, you know? Yeah, so let me know, and I'll see you later.